Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Travel. We are here with Nick Foster. I'm really excited because he did something different that you don't always hear. He sold part of his company, he kept some of his company, and he's running a very successful company for Foster Financial CPA. So welcome, and we're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany.
All right. Well, because we have a lot of viewers and listeners, I'd love for you to explain like your journey. How'd you get into the CPA world? Why are you in it now?
So I'm second generation CPA, actually. My stepdad had his own CPA firm, and I was always good at numbers. I always excelled. I was always the kid that was in the next year math going through school. And then the excitement of going to be a CPA was, the idea of I can work 4 months of the year and do taxes and then have the rest of the time off, which was not
I was about to say, did that
as we planned, right? And so kind of got into it, but then, my world, I went into actually corporate America first. So I was dealing with construction companies, development companies, kind of working my way up the chain to get to CFO. And it hit a point where I was traveling a lot, little kids, and it was kind of like the work-life balance wasn't perfect. And so it was my stepdad, and he's like, Nick, you can help so many more people with your knowledge. And so I was doing taxes when I was 12, but then so essentially going back to Tony Robbins, like we talked about earlier, I was actually on vacation with my family, and it was like, in order to storm the beaches of Normandy, you got to burn the boats. So I actually came home from my vacation and put my 2-week notice in and started my firm with no revenue, nothing.
Oh, and how many kids did you have at home?
I had 2 at the time. So one was 3 and one was 1.
Okay, that's a scary time.
Yeah, but I mean, it goes back to a lot of things in life. Like we're talking, like my best decision ever made in life is my wife. And, she was very supportive, and, she's a stay-at-home mom that has the harder job than I ever had. But she was like, okay, we can try this. Worst case scenario, we can always go back to corporate America, or I could get a night job or something, which luckily that never had to happen. But so it was a weird pivot and transition in going down the entrepreneur route.
So as you started, because that story sounded great, but it sounded like it was just all peaches and cream. Like it was beautiful. Was there ever any road bumps or like some nerves that got a hold of you, like during starting the new business? Because you left. Did you do any simultaneously, or did you like put your 2 weeks notice and then you just started?
So I had a skill set, right? And so essentially when I first started, I was doing a fractional CFO. I had negotiated a deal where I was 3 times in the office for that company and then 2 days in the office for me.
Okay.
Right. And so
Nice.
that's kind of how it started. So I had some revenue coming in, but yeah, there was concerns. I actually hired marketers right out the gate to kind of
Wow.
start. So the money I was making from my fractional CFO was just going to the employees. And so, we had $30,000 in my E-Trade account. And it was like, that's what we have our lifeline to go off of at that point. So that was 10 years ago. So it's just, we're blessed and there's a lot of gratitude, but yeah.
How long did it take you to truly get your company off the ground, would you say? Where you felt comfortable?
Well, I think define comfortable.
Yeah, I like how you said that.
So because that's all different. Obviously the first 2 years, I definitely took a pay cut significantly, but just knew the course. And as I kept more clients came on, it kept feeding it. And, and then by year 3 or 4, I had 3 staff and we just kept growing. And so it was, yeah, I mean, the uncomfortableness, what I tell everybody is I was really good at accounting, right? But then to become an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, now I got to figure out how to market, how to, there's all these other hats you're wearing and how to develop the team and how to, you know, so it's a weird balance that you can't, that you see all these TikToks of, oh, you want to just work on the business, not in the business. Well, it, at a certain point,
Yeah.
once you get your revenue and you find your key individuals that can help take that load off, that's a hard transition to do because you have to have fuel in the tank. You have to have the income, the profits to be able to make that work.
I think you brought up a really good point there. A lot of people look at the TikTok and, oh, just work on the business. But a lot of times, like when you said you transition, you're in the business and you got to find hours to work on the business. And then when you transition, it's less hours in the business and more on the business. But you have to make that transition if you're going to actually run a business. Because really, like you said, you really have multiple small businesses in one business because you have marketing, you have sales, you have operations, you have so many different things. And like you said, you call them the hats, and which is, I think it's really hard to do that as an entrepreneur unless you really step back and start looking at the company as a whole. Now, but what's interesting about your story is that you actually sold part of your business.
Define part. So I sold the assets within the
Okay.
business. So it's the client list. So
Yes.
I maintained the LLC and, there within that. So, me doing consulting or something like that, I can still operate within my business structure.
Okay, so you sold your assets. How many years were you in business before you decided you wanted to sell?
I had, I've had 2 to 3 offers in the last 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
And there were a lot of private equity. And, you hear a lot of bad things with the private equity. Some may go well. There's probably good of talking about the fuel that they have the money that they can put the right people in the places. The challenge was within the private equity world on a lot of those deals, like they had the 100% clawback. So it's like, this doesn't make sense. I'm going to put all this trust and I have a ton of stress over here, but what stress am I creating by now having to answer to, because, it's a relationship business, right? And you're having to maintain those relationships and it's not just about a dollar figure. And so like, we did bookkeeping for small businesses to medium-sized businesses. And so it's like I always was price sensitive for those smaller businesses, especially beginning entrepreneurs. Like they don't need to be spending $500 a month in a bookkeeping when they don't have a lot going on, right? But it's the advisory side that I think where accounting has to get to is you have to be able to be an advisor and help them. And there's, so my business model, we never did hourly fees. We did fixed fees. And so part of the clients that we brought on over time, they could have been starting, but I'm like, once you get to $50,000, $60,000 in revenue, then it makes sense to bring on someone to maybe do your books. But part of that is it being a resource and being able to help navigate being an entrepreneur. Like, what does this mean? Or what are the stupid TikToks? And we keep talking about TikTok, but what are the stupid TikTok things that you keep seeing that's like, oh, I should do this? And it's like, this makes no sense. Right.
I love that you brought that up because I think the biggest issue in entrepreneurship is the accounting side. You want to know why? Because they don't see revenue coming in from it. But at least in our business, property management, you bill a client wrong, you're losing that client. So in reality, it's actually one of the biggest things. Our advisory board, like we're like, the accounting's the number one. Because if you get accounting right, then you can get everything else to function. But you get accounting wrong, everything's wrong. Your head's getting cut off. So I love that you brought that. So at 50,000 is when you recommend someone bringing someone on to advise
For
at a
sure.
small level,
Yeah.
but making sure that someone's helping you out in it.
To have a pulse on the business to, and I always say, like, even me being a CFO, right? And like I told you, is like eating your vegetables. Like my job is to oversee how the things are going. Because if you're building a carburetor, you're better off spending the time doing that and making more revenue there than to try and figure out your books that you're probably going to screw up. and you don't even know what it all means, right? And so it's, everybody's always about, I always say the golf analogy is business is all about, it's not about the drive, it's how you finish the hole, right?
Oh, that's so
And
true.
so many people are worried about growing revenue, but I've seen companies make 30, $40 million in revenue and are losing money. And it's like, well, I could care less about this big number, this ego.
Yep.
It's about what's your profit line.
100%. And one of my advisors, we were talking the other day, and he said, people that talk revenue don't know business. People that talk net know business. Because there's a lot of companies that make a lot of money on revenue, but their net profit is like trash.
Yeah.
And so it's really important, 100%. Do you mind? Can we go back to the acquisition side of when you sold? Can you talk
Sure.
to us a little bit about it?
In what regard?
What I'd like to know is, you said you decided not to go PE money. Why? And you said it's because it was harder. You went with someone that knew you or someone.
It was a relationship. I'm in a group called Front Row Dads, which is
Oh,
family
nice.
men with business, not businessmen with family. So it's kind of putting family first. And so a good friend within that group, actually, he does a mastermind. And so he was like, hey, there's a CPA looking to grow and he's looking to acquire businesses. He's already acquired one CPA firm. It may be a good introduction. And so him and I talked, and he's heavily on social media and heavily doing the things I never wanted to do. And so I'm like, you're kind of winning in that regard. And, he's created, some cool things for our clients that now we've kind of embraced into, whether it be he has like different forms, actually, like that if you're a client of ours, now you have all these videos of tax questions that maybe you're like, I want to understand more. Instead of it being a one-on-one thing, there's just a library that you can go into. So he's just put some things together that I think is where the advisory side is how can we help our clients and move the needle.
Nice. What do you wish you would have known before you sold? Can you share that with us?
I think the biggest thing I wish I would have known, or like in hindsight 2020, is just understanding their business more and how does it fold in,
I
right?
love that you brought that up.
Because it's one thing for him to do the due diligence on my side, but I didn't do a good enough due diligence to understand their side, right? And to say, okay, you know, in new format, how does the intake of the taxes look? How is your world going to work now, bringing us in and the amount of clients we're now bringing to you? What does the SOP look like on the new business?
Oh, I like that you brought that up because so often when someone goes to sell, they're like, hey, I'm just selling my business, right? But they don't interview really the business that's coming and buying it. And we're in the same situation with property management and maintenance companies. It's like really it's a relationship business. And
For sure.
when you're selling or when you're buying a business, both sides have to do due diligence. And we were just talking with somebody. I was at a conference just saying the exact same thing. And most people don't say that. And I love that you brought it up because I think so often people just sell, but because of clawbacks, they actually don't make as much as they could have if they would have interviewed the firm buying them. So I love that. What were the top 3 things that they wanted to see from you when you were going to sell?
I mean, it's financials,
Is
right?
it? Okay.
Obviously, I mean, client list, financials, tax returns, all of the basic due diligence. Now, the good news is I'm an accountant, so my numbers were very detailed and oriented. So it's like whatever you want to see,
Yeah.
it all makes sense, right?
It's
So,
transparent.
so it wasn't that big of a deal, right? And I think it's trying to, even now 4 months later, it's trying to like how does I don't want to say this. I was the onboarder for all of the new clients. So I loved, just like what you're doing right here. I loved people's stories. I
Mhm.
loved hearing about them. I loved hearing how things go. But now kind of the changing of the guards,
Mhm.
there's kind of been a pain point of like, well, Nick's not around. What's going on? Right. And so I think, if in a perfect world, the best way to go about it would probably be more of a, okay, let me have a meeting with every client and have the new owners involved and having a passing of the guard with the relationship.
I love that you brought that up because I was at this conference and they're like, hey, how do you buy PMC companies? Because, 9 times out of 10, it's this handoff that's not real relationship based. And what are we in? We're all in relationship based businesses. And so I actually call out to every single owner and get on a Zoom if I need to. And because I think that's where there's not churn as much. You churn clients when they feel anxious, or when they feel like they don't know who the new person is.
Sure.
And I think similarly is the biggest things we've tried to do is, hey, here's my cell, here's a direct line, I'm the new person. Sometimes it doesn't always work well, but it's like when you're selling a business, I think that's the biggest thing for people to realize. How are you going to make sure that you don't lose all the clients that I just brought to you?
Can I ask you a question? So
Yeah.
you give every client your cell phone
I
number?
do when I'm going through a transaction.
Okay.
So I call them from my cell.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is so they feel like they have a direct line, which 9 times out of 10 I don't get a call back. But because I call from a cell phone, they feel like they can actually call me. So there's a lady in one of our transactions that didn't come on board. During the transaction, she decided to go somewhere else. And she was one I didn't get to talk to, dang it. And she came back and she called us and she got a hold of me somehow through the line, and I gave her my cell. She goes, you are giving your cell phone. And I said, yes, I want you to have a direct line. She goes, I won't use it. And I was like, hey, but if you need to, if there's an issue, you use my cell phone. And at some point when we go to bigger and bigger, I'm going to have this cell phone over here. But it's actually made it where we don't churn clients. Our churn rate during an acquisition is 5% or less.
Okay.
And the going rate for PMCs is 20%. And so that's what normal people are churning. And so I don't know if it's the right way.
And I'm asking because it's funny, because when I started the business, everybody had my cell phone, which fine, right? I was going and whatever. Before we started this thing, I turned off my phone. I hate the phone. And I think it is because everybody had my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, okay, you can call me, or okay, you can text, there was text. And so it's like, you're just getting
100%.
pinged every which way, and I'm like, this isn't. Or, oh, I have a person referring me. Oh, here's Nick's cell phone, right? And then I have the person leaving a voicemail, and it's just like, this just isn't efficient as we continue to scale, and still the legacy clients still reach out via that way.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to focus on the tasks at hand and not drop this text or whatever and get back to them, because I'm like, so it's just a mental, I need to get to this, I need to do this. And it's like,
it's a mental load.
I'm blessed to have a great EA, and it's like, it's now kind of like coaching all of my current references, or whoever's referring us, is to be like, okay, you got to email, and we'll set the call up. And
net referrals don't come to me at all. It's only during acquisitions. And it's been interesting. Like, it's the one thing that I feel like we don't churn. But there's a point there. Like, I wonder if they will start to call me. They don't right now.
Okay.
Just during the transition. Because a lot of times property management agreements have to change. And so there was a lot of people that thought I was crazy. We'll see how it works. We've done 2 so far, and the owners don't.
This is a little different than mine. Mine was like, I would have a client go, hey, I have a question about, I'm gonna buy this, right?
Yeah.
Nick, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Or, hey, what's going on with my taxes? Like, all of these just pingings, and it's just like, and so
True though.
So different business model, but that's so I took the cell phone off my signature email, and it's like, okay.
Oh, I don't have that on my email.
I had that.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But when you get into taxes, yeah, it's an anxiety business as well. Like, people want to know their money is right. So 100%. So now that you sold and things that you changed, where are you headed now? Just in the consultant side?
Yeah, I mean, like, I brought it up before, like The Second Mountain by David Brooks. I love that book. And so, I'll be consulting, helping, larger businesses, whether it be, higher net worth individuals with their tax plays. But, where my heart is kind of calling me is to do more philanthropical work. And,
That's cool.
I just joined the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters. And so it's like, how can I help people and kind of go down that path? And so that's, I'm a spiritual guy. And so it's kind of like, okay, what does the next life look like? It may be it's going to probably be completely different, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's all about how many people we can impact, right?
For sure.
Is that why you decided to sell then? To be able to transition? Or what was the ultimate decision that you knew that it was time? Because sometimes people sit in this window and go, I don't know, is it time? Is it not? Burnt out or not burnt out? How did you really decide that, okay, it's time?
So I would say, as the business kept growing, the hard part of accountant, it's a dying industry, right? And so the challenge with accounting is having team members. You can support them, you can do all that. I have some great ones that have been with me for a long time, but I've had ones that are with me for 16, 18 months where I've given them all the time and energy, and they know their clients because they're account managers. So they're handling this amount of clients, and they go somewhere else. So then it's that brain damage of I'm maintaining all of the knowledge of all these clients. And so that has been a challenge for 5 years. And so it was one of those, in selling the business, I was thinking about the team that I have, and I have a great team, but it's like, I can't keep doing the same thing. Right. And, knowing how the new owner had, better, they have a bigger employee list. Right. So it's like, okay, you figured out something maybe I haven't. And, so that was part of it. And, the stress, like, I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of being an entrepreneur where it's like you see the achievement and everybody sees this, but no one sees all the crap underneath the water.
Yes.
And that is true. Like, like my 14-year-old daughter, I'm like, so I have my son who's 12, and he's going, Dad, I don't want you to sell. Like, I want to be working at Foster Financial. And then I have my daughter just like, Dad, I'm happy for you,
Yeah.
and it's like, they knew the weight I was carrying.
Yeah. I think I love that you got a little emotional because I don't think anybody sees the weight that entrepreneurs carry. The stress at
sure.
night, or when a team member quits and you're that small and you only have a few team members, and it's like, oh hell, what just happened? And then
Yeah.
it's like you have to still show up 100%.
You have to show up, and it's not fair for that work to go on another employee. So
So it
who
goes over your
bears it,
head.
right? And so it's, yeah. So, I can't tell you the different years where it's like, okay, I got to work 7 days a week to get out, and because we've promised a delivery to a client. And, with accounting, that's the hard part, is you have defined deadlines every month.
You do.
Right.
It doesn't
And so
change.
it's just, it never ends.
It
And
doesn't
so
end. I love that your daughter said she was excited for you. She's the older one though,
she's
right?
the
So she got to
oldest.
see a little bit more of the weight of what was on Dad's shoulders.
100%.
Yeah. What would you, if you had one advice to give yourself at 25, your 25-year-old self, what advice would you give?
To not stress about the future.
Okay, that's easier said than done.
But so, and you're like, you and I had a great
Yeah.
conversation a few weeks ago, and it's like, the Strength Finder book is, what's your top 5 strengths? One of mine is futuristic. So I've
Same here.
always been thinking, what is this going to look like in 5 years? What's this going to look like in 10 years? And, I've started to like go to lunches with kids that are getting out of college to kind of mentor them.
That's
and
cool.
and give them that same thing. And like, I actually had lunch with a kid a few months ago, and he was amazing, and I could see so much of myself in him. And so I'm like, dude, like, there's this, and it's a balance of living in the present and being gratitude for where you're at, and then the flip side of it will happen if you're putting in the work, you're being a sponge and being inquisitive and constantly learning and growing. And, everyone should be working on themselves. So it'd be two, it'd be that, and it would be, I just did a golf tournament and I was talking to my caddy about the same
And you
stuff.
play golf?
Yeah. And so I told him, I'm like, something at 22, 25 that I didn't catch it till 30 is like reading. And I think reading is so, like, someone can put their whole life into one book, and the amount of wisdom that you can get, whether it's like 4 or 5 different little tidbits that you're like, wow, that like blew my mind, right? And like, I think that is so powerful for anyone to get involved with.
Okay, I love that you said you didn't get in and read until 30 because I think I started reading, truly reading, at like 35 or 36. I was that kid that was
Aren't
in
you
high
35 or 36
No,
now?
I
So you
wish.
just started reading? Okay.
I'm like 40, almost 43. I named my age. I aged myself. No, but I was that kid in high school, and I tell everybody now, realize high school doesn't end, college doesn't end.
100%.
Your college truly starts, or your master degree is when you go out and you really start learning. I was always that kid. I was like, oh, I get out of high school, I never have to go again, or I get out of college, I'm done. And my kids say that sometimes, and I'm like, just realize your true learning is really when you get out. And as much as you can learn, and if you look at Elon Musk and how much he reads a day, or you look at the Mavericks owner.
Cute.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know why
He's not the owner anymore. So
he's not, but he's
not as
part.
close.
Yeah,
He's not. He's sold.
he sold 100%. I thought he sold.
gone.
Okay, I thought he kept a percentage. But how many hours he reads a day? Like if you look at the people that are really running things really well, they read hours and hours a day. And once I learned that, I'm like, oh, that says something. I should probably read as well.
Yeah, and in all honesty, because of my having younger kids and stuff, it's like I don't have just the time to sit down and read a book, right? And so, Audible is amazing, and some people think that's like a cheat, and I'm just like, like if I'm driving, like that's what I'm doing. I'm listening, and I'm gaining information as I drive.
Hey, however we can gain
100%.
information, it works. Because
Yeah.
like you just said, when you have small kids and you run a business and you're jumping, like to have a moment to sit down and actually read a book. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
I'm actually with my kids right now. I've started to. I kind of created like 4 books I want them to read before they graduate high school.
Which ones are those?
So right now we're doing Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, that's a good
And
one.
so I actually read that when I was in 8th grade. And so some of it, it's like kind of like a beginning accounting book, but I think some of it, Think and Grow Rich is another one.
Good one.
The Untethered Soul
Okay, I don't know
is
that one.
something that no one, and I read it a few years ago, and it's like, it's the book that I want my kids to read, because that book is basically about the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves and how much that curbs who we are, right?
It does.
Whether you're so much caught up in your thoughts that you're questioning everything you're doing, and it's seeking perfection. And I can tell you, like, after reading that book, like that's one of the books that have been so powerful for me. I have shut that internal brain off. Like, I'm just present, and whatever comes out of my mouth, it's supposed to be.
100%.
Yeah.
And just move forward, just one
Yeah.
for another. So that was 3, right? You had, what was the 4th book?
That one's to be determined. It's how
Okay.
deep do I want to go? So there's 2 that I'm debating on. One is Letting Go,
Ooh.
and that one is really good. And then the other one I'm debating about is Psycho-Cybernetics,
Okay, I don't know
which
that one.
no one's ever. Someone's shaking their head. So it's like,
Okay.
that's kind of talking. This is right up your alley, being the psychologist. It's basically like someone, however they view themselves, is what they're going to get out of life. So it came from a surgeon that did plastic surgery, and he would change the way they looked, but it didn't matter if you changed inside. If they thought they were this way, they were still seeing the same person.
So true.
And so that's like a heavy book. And I'm like, okay, at 17, 18 years old, is that something I really want my kids or is that like a later book that we talk about? But we're doing Rich Dad, Poor Dad right now for my 14 and 12-year-old, and I'm reading it, and then we're kind of then having discussions about it to help them understand some of the concepts within the book.
That's a good one. My dad gave that one to me when I was young.
Same.
And so I read it as well. It was always about, I love the concept of money, I think it's really important to learn how to use it and how to understand it,
Right.
and how it can be a benefit and not a crutch or a curse.
But that is not the means to the world.
No,
right?
it's not.
And that's the challenge is, like I read a Wall Street Journal article the other day that they said 80% of the high-end purses is bought by people making 75 grand or less.
Okay, I did not know that number. You just made me so dumbfounded. Wait, what?
So 80% of people
Buying Louis Vuitton and Gucci.
Yep. For the status of it, but they shouldn't be buying that at that point. So they're buying a persona. Now, I don't know if that's the insecurities of someone or whatever, but yeah.
Okay, you just like totally blew my mind because I can't even imagine. I remember the first time I bought a Louis Vuitton.
Hold on. So this is the first time. So is there many? Is that what you're
there's
saying?
like a couple.
Okay.
There's a couple. I'm very frugal. Like I can't stand to spend money actually, because I was taught as a young age, once you spend it, it's gone. Like it's gone. Now to impact someone, that's a whole different ballgame. But just to spend something on something,
Right.
A product or something, I struggle with it because it's like that money's gone.
Did you ever read the book Psychology of Money?
Yes, it's a good one.
Okay, that's a good one.
It's a really good one. So I love that, but you blew my mind with that statistic. I would never have thought that. I would have thought it was the opposite, But I guess, but it's true. People want a persona, right? People want the vision that they make a lot instead of making a lot. So if you had someone in front of you that was looking to sell, because this is a lot of people that come up to me a lot of times, like, when's the right time? If you had someone was toying with the idea of selling their business, what would you tell them? Or what advice would you give them?
So that's a huge thing, right? Like to fit that in. I mean, so the first is, what are you doing next?
Mm-hmm.
The second is more of okay, how much are you working now? Like, what does your life look like now, right? Because it's this whole, selling isn't the best option for everybody, right? Especially going back to if you have a profitable business and you're not operating it a ton and you have the people involved, even if you're getting a 6 multiple on your EBITDA, if it's just printing money every year, why would you leave that, right? What is, the question would be, what is the key motivators to selling? And to really go down that path, I literally had an introduction from a bank contact that it was a guy that does like insurance for bars, was like teetering with the idea. And so we started, we had like an hour conversation, and he's still on the teetering fence, but he's like, I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this. So every person is different. Every business is different.
Every person is different. Every business is different. And I love that you said it depends on the person, because I do think you can build your business to be like an annuity. It just prints cash, Now, do you want to put the time and effort to make it? That is one question. And usually I find the people that need to sell or want to sell or usually have a pain point that they've got to decide if they really do want to level it up or if they want to stay where they're at. So 100%.
And, and going on the flip side, like I've had clients that aren't making money and they had like a restaurant. I'm like, you should close this down and just go get a job, right? Because you're not making any money, and you could be making way more money just working at a restaurant and managing the restaurant than you are. And you're dealing with all these stresses, and there's no reward at the end of the day. So why deal with all this other crap?
I love that you brought that up, because in the statistics in property management alone is actually the owners make less than if they would have actually just got themselves a full-time job.
Seriously?
The percentage is high because they're running it like a job, but then they cut their salary to hire someone, and they never get back up to actually a salary. So the statistics show that almost 90% don't pay them a fair wage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, what's the
Are
point?
you sure you still want to be in this business?
Oh, I love this business. I'm very passionate about this business. But I think that's the difference. I think you've got to pay yourself a fair wage.
Right.
What's economy and what's a fair wage. But I go into a lot of businesses where a lot of times I'm like, I need to hire someone double your salary right now. And they're like, no, this is a fair wage. So we have to go into comps and what it takes. And I think that's the first issue with entrepreneurship. Usually they take it out of themselves before they actually realize it.
Which is great though too, right? Like same thing. Like I have entrepreneurs that have done well and increased their lifestyle to that level. And then the company starts not performing as well. And then they're still taking on debt for themselves personally. Like I've seen that. And it's like,
That's not good either.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with like the coaching thing is like you are the last person to eat as the entrepreneur.
It's true.
You got to care about everybody else. You shouldn't be taking out distributions if there's not cash for payroll in the next month.
Oh, I heard this from, I think it was Kevin Costner, and he defined entrepreneurship. He's like, you're not an entrepreneur until you go home and you tell your spouse, we're not paying ourselves this month. We got to pay everybody else and we're going to go without. And I do agree with that. But in our business, a lot of times they never get to that level to pay themselves a salary. And so, like you said, I think that's where the benefit comes in from someone like you, is a consultant that can say, hey, look, we need to really have the hard conversations, have someone outward in looking. Because 9 times out of 10 entrepreneurs are what? We kind of are blinded. Sometimes we're naive sometimes, or we look at
naive, not knowing. And I always say it's lonely at the top. It's totally lonely at the top. And if you don't have someone looking out for your best interests and thinking of things you're not thinking about because you're running the day to day, like it's always good to have someone challenge the thinking.
100%. That's why, yes, 100%. I always look for someone that will challenge my way of thinking. Because if you're only looking from yourself,
right,
you're not getting the best outcome. So I have a question. One last question. If someone wants to find you to help them be a consultant, to help them on their finances, where do they find you?
You can go to my website, fosterfinancialcpa.com, or find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Nick Foster CPA.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you coming on today. It's a very big topic that people need to learn about. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you, or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.